Well, we've gone all the way west we could go, and it's about going all the way east possible. Montreal week is on deck. First and Now, the official BC Lions podcast, and we're thrilled to welcome World Vision as the presenting partner of First and Now. Head to bclions.com/worldvision. That's the page people can go to if they want to become a supporter. They were the presenting sponsor of our last home game against Winnipeg. Fred Penner, of course, is involved, played at halftime. And Nicky, it's great to be back.
Yeah, what a week we had, hey? And just capped off by a 38-12 win over the Red Blacks just to put the icing on the cake. But it was a blast. It was everything that, it was as advertised heading into it. It seems like a smash hit from hearing from all the fans, sponsors, everybody across. And of course, kind of bearing the lead. I'm talking Touchdown Pacific here. And sure, that was a hell of a time.
It was, and we've decided to not have a guest this week because we have a myriad of topics to go over. It is a very huge game in Montreal Friday night, Percival Molson Stadium, my favorite road trip of the year. I know it's up there for you. But we've got Mathieu to talk about. Jalon Edwards-Cooper is back rehabbing from injury. Of course, we saw glimpses of the 2022 Nathan Rourke. So there is plenty to talk about with this 6-6 Lions team now in a first-place tie with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this very, very tight Western Division. Looking like Lions Bombers could be battling till the end. I don't want to count anybody out right now, but we'll talk about that as the episode goes on. But yes, 38-12 win. And like you, I walked in there on my first time seeing it. We'd seen pictures throughout the week, but walked in there for our little media tour on the Thursday.
Yeah.
I think it was after practice in Langford, which was a fun time as well. And I was in awe. I'm like, the first time we saw this, it was just a ballpark. No doubt a cool place to watch a baseball game in normal times, but to see what they did to that's when I first started to really get excited. I got excited when we landed, got on the bus, and got downtown near the harbor to the hotel, but the venue was something to see for the first time, was it not?
The grandstand specifically, right? That's how big it was. And I like to kind of venture off into the stands and just for fun for one point, but also two, to get some visuals from different angles within the stadium. And I immediately made a beeline to the very top corner of the grandstands. And yeah, like you weren't that high up. And
no,
even when you're looking at it from field of view, you're right behind it. And it looks like kind of like a sea on Saturday, it looked like a sea of orange, which is really cool. But the Coors Light party zone was a blast too. That was one of my favorite moments from the entire trip. Was luckily those second quarter touchdowns that kind of blew the game open were toward that Coors Light party zone, where you're within feet of the standing zone fans in the back there, and we'll stand back dapping everybody up. Justin McInnis hitting the gradie in front of everybody. Just all the sound of the fans, cheering. It was a really cool spectacle, and that's what kind of made it unique to me. It was that you don't really get that close feel to the fans. We kind of had like the walkway out too. That was really cool, capturing
through
that
the maze
times.
There with security. Yeah.
So that was really cool. But
our friend Cole McGarvey there doing some content. I did one of his top 5 videos.
I participated too. He hit me on the spot.
Haven't seen the final product yet.
He hit me on a blind ranking of all-time BC Lions receivers.
That's the same one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I did well, actually. I had Giroy as my number 1. Like, I saved it for Giroy there.
Obvious.
But it's a blind ranking. You might rank somebody else, and then that's the point of it, right? But what a time, right? And like you said, Nathan Rourke looked like 2022 Nathan Rourke, and that was the key to me starting off hot and keeping the foot on the gas pedal. Yeah,
and I noted this right away. It was early on. The defense made a couple of big stops early, and you hear Gary Peters after say that was they didn't come out with that intensity all year long, and that was the defense he was talking about in his post-game field interview with Farhan. But you could tell this team was feeding off that energy of the week. That can go one or two ways. On one hand, you might think, okay, there's a lot happening. These guys are out of their routine. Could be some distractions. But everyone embraced everything, and it's a credit to Rick Campbell and the entire organization that they bought in. They know they have a duty to represent this club province-wide, league-wide, and you can tell everyone sort of fed off that excitement when it came. It translated onto the field, and We got to see Eden Eberhardt, first CFL touchdown. Keon Hatcher Sr. made a nice catch on an eventual scoring drive. Justin McInnes, Mr. 1000, we're calling him now. A lot of these usual suspects were back. The 5-game losing streak, a lot of these guys weren't contributing the way that they're used to. So it was great to see some of these regulars contribute in a big way. And
what stood out to me too, and that's especially in that second quarter splurge from the Lions offense, is that second quarter, the first touchdown to Alexander Hollins, where McInnes, it's a cheat code, that route where McInnes runs an arrow, which is pretty much like a slanted route toward the sideline.
Yeah.
And he runs out from the slot and he pretty much rubs off the defender for Hollins to just come on the slant to either Neath. And that's what Nathan's reading, right? And if you get man coverage, it's game over. But at the same time, Nathan had to hang in there and hit and make that throw while a Red Blacks linebacker, Frankie Griffin's coming down on him hard. So Nathan took a shot, right? And Nathan got back up and he saw that passion that he showed in that opening drive touchdown too, where he spikes a football, takes a spill and helmet comes off. Yeah. So a lot of passion there. And then even something I noticed, we'll talk about this moving forward for Montreal, but there's still some things to improve, I think, from this Lions team. And I noticed this post-practice while we were doing our media scrums yesterday, is there were two guys out in the field yesterday, Nathan Rourke and Aiden Eberhardt. And Nathan was throwing, he was doing a bunch of dropbacks and kind of like that 3-step, 5-step drop back and just rifling a ball to the left sideline. And Aiden was actually starting about 30 yards downfield and just running like 5 yards and meeting the ball where Nathan was throwing it, looking very similar to where they caught that touchdown pass or connected for that touchdown pass on Saturday. And knowing Nathan Rourke, that had to be on his mind, because if you watch that ball, again, I'm just speculating, but on Saturday, if you watch the ball from Nathan, it wasn't that like tight spiral. It kind of flubbed in there. He still got him for the touchdown, right? They don't ask how, but I bet that bothered Nathan, and I think that was proof of after practice watching on Tuesday. So that's the type of work ethic Nathan still has.
It's always fun to see the extra work these guys do put in. And they've had some media attention this week, like you're saying. Both quarterbacks spoke on both practice days. I should say Vernon Adams Jr., because it looks like he is going to dress. He is going to be listed at number 2, but we'll talk about Montreal here more in a few minutes. But that's what I tell people about this kid. He's all in. Vernon's the same way. Vernon's always out doing extra work when he's a starting quarterback, and we've talked about how he's helping the equipment staff pack up and everything. So everyone is bought in. Everyone understands the team is the team. We're all part of this together. And hey, you wonder if Eberhardt is going to be a guy who's going to benefit from having Nathan Rourke back. Not that he was not beneficial of Vernon Adams Jr., but getting that first touchdown for number 19, no doubt a bit of a monkey off his back. William Stanback, 171 yards from scrimmage. He's averaging nearly 100 yards per game on the ground the last 4 weeks. And he's going back to Montreal this week, but it's just nice to have that bruising back that we haven't had for a few years. Takes the pressure off a lot of these receivers when the offense isn't moving well. So William Stanback is a guy who has an extra gear, and that's shown here for the last month.
100%, and it's not even just the running aspect too. He was the leading receiver on Saturday, 78 yards for the Lions, which is pretty crazy. He's up to 34 catches in the season too, so he's been doing that consistently, and that's kind of been the key to me with Will, is he's been available. It's tough for running back to suit up in all 18 games. Will obviously has played all 12 games up to this point, and he's had 15 plus carries in 3 straight weeks. So you're seeing Jordan Maximic and this offense commit to the run too, and we saw in 2022 with a guy like James Butler how much Nathan Rourke, while it was their aid, James Butler played a massive role in coming out of the backfield for Nathan, and also alleviating some of that pressure by being a serviceable running back in the run game too, right? And you know, his career high in yards is on just under shy of 1,400 yards. Will's already had 1,100 yards this season. There's 6 games to go. Yeah. So Will Stanback, you know, it was pretty big news when he was brought in here days before free agency, and he's living up to that expectation and more, which is such a benefit for this offense.
And he's a great guy to have in the room, and he's been reminding these guys throughout this losing streak. He's like, hey, just a year ago, I was on a team in Montreal that was struggling around the halfway mark, and I think they won 5 in a row to close out the regular season. A convincing win in Toronto that seemed like it came out of nowhere, but knowing what we know now, the fact that they're 10-1, maybe that was not obviously an anomaly. And of course, they ended up beating Winnipeg to win that Grey Cup a week later. So, yep, that was the template of how this Lions team can and should play more often than not. And they're going to have to bring that same intensity, that same standard into Montreal. 10-1 Alouettes. And as you point this out, Nick, Montreal coming off the bye. It was the Alouettes, the odd team out on OK Tire Labor Day weekend this year. And by the way, Touchdown Pacific, the fact that it was Labor Day weekend made it extra special too. But before we talk about Montreal, what else did you like in Victoria? Talking non-football.
The event. Well, I was getting an Instagram post queued for this, but you know that No Sean Moreno anthem video or that clip where he's like, you can see the tears and like slow motion drilling down. When that what was it called, the search and rescue helicopter from Comox, when that came over, Fortunate Sons
fly
playing,
over,
and it's just
that was awesome.
It was special. Like, I was almost getting emotional during that moment. That was a really special moment for me, just seeing all the fans, and again, like you said, kind of taking it all back and saying like, wow, this is really happening right now. And we got to be a part of it. So that was very special. I got a shout out to the horse ride carriage at Tally-Ho with Moj.
Bob, yeah.
That was hilarious. Little kind of on the fly content idea we had that took 15 minutes. And like Moj said, if you haven't watched the video, it was super relaxing. I was filming it, but I felt very relaxed too. It was almost like a little break from all the chaos that was Touchdown Pacific. Then the food. I mean, it's 10 out of 10 in Victoria, right? We opened up night one getting some Italian at Pagliacci's.
That was incredible. Yeah.
Our hotel breakfast, Gotham, that was a great place too. These like espresso pancakes that were 10 out of 10.
I did that on game day, and the Dice family was at the table next to me.
Yeah.
Bob Dice, Tristan Dice. Yeah.
That's where I first saw Matthew Betts actually on Friday morning. But those are some of the things that I'll take away from this. And then obviously the game, the second quarter touchdowns in specific, like I said earlier, just special moments. And that's the whole point of this, right? You'll never forget this week.
Yeah, never forget it. And I know it's being asked already. Are we going back? Is it happening again? Well, can't guarantee it or say it's not happening. I would expect it happens again at some point next year. Who knows? 2026, we shall see. But there's going to be some things that everyone learns from. I understand there was some lineups and some logistical issues. That's going to happen. It's a temporary structure. You learn from these things, but that in no way overshadows how much fun and successful this event was. And just being there, 3 cruise ships came in on the Thursday.
Yeah, in the harbor.
It was cool just to be part of that tourist vibe as tourist season, I guess, pretty much comes to an end here in a couple of weeks as we're recording this on the 4th of September. But I want to go on a carriage ride next time. Was that your idea? Moj's idea? What was it?
That was Moj's idea. I'll give him credit.
That was good. Check out the video at our YouTube channel. I love the comparables. See, you need horses to win this game, and the Lions clearly had enough horses.
Dig too there.
I was gonna do that. I was gonna save this for go for it or punt, but I'll think of something else. Redfish, bluefish, fish and chips. I did that on Friday night, and it was like one of those like stands on the harbor. The lineup was about half hour 35, and I got there, and the woman kind of looked at me. She's like, "Don't worry, it's worth it." And it was worth it. Just outstanding. I didn't have lunch that day either, so maybe that had something to do with it, but the fish and chips were outstanding.
I think my favorite meal had to be Pagliacci still, night one.
Yeah,
I had that seafood lasagna. There was live music with a cello and violin in front of us. It turned out to be the owner that was singing Henry Don't Eat No Meat. That's what it was, right? Yeah.
We were singing that for the rest of the day.
Yeah, got caught in our heads. But yeah, like you said, really can't go wrong in Victoria. But put a bow on that. Move on to Montreal. And
I opened with all the way west to all the way east. And yeah, if there ever was a perfect test for this Lions team to build off an effort like that, it has to be against Montreal. The Alouettes 10-1. I think the only team in modern CFL history to have an 18-1 stretch.
19-1.
Well, if they win this one, it's 19-1, I read.
Oh, really? I saw the graphic that said 19. Well,
yeah.
We're not in the fact-checking business here.
I believe it's 18-1 at the moment. 8 straight, including the playoffs last year, and 10-1 this year. So it was 5 in the regular season, 3 in the playoffs, and now 10-1, I think is what it is. But anyway,
there you go.
Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. One of us is wrong.
Probably me.
And you look at the stats. I mean, Steve Daniels sends out the reports in the analytics every week. They're top one, top two, top three, I should say, in pretty much every virtual category. Cody Fajardo, I love that storyline. He's a great man, great quarterback. Was here for 1 year as a backup in 2018 and kind of was a cast-off from Saskatchewan, and him and Jason Moss get reunited and do all these special accomplishments, and he's back from injury. It's a great test, and we've been practicing with crowd noise this week. Rarely ever do crowd noise in Montreal, so that also tells you the type of environment we're going to be expecting. Going to be fun.
Yeah, and this team is loaded on every category, right? You talk about Fajardo leading the way at quarterback, but he's got weapons. Walter Fletcher, complete two-way running back. He actually has more receiving yards than rushing yards. He has 400 of each, right? And Tyson Philpott, their best receiver, is injured right now. But the first-year player, Charleston Rambo, stepped up, and he has almost 600 yards. And I think he's getting like 100 a game the last four. And Cole Speaker is a guy. It was funny talking to Ronald Kent on All Tap when he's saying, 17, 14 is Rambo, 6 is Philpott. He's just naming them like that. But those are their guys, right? And then they're just an efficient offense. I was looking at what does Montreal do well. They're first in the league in yards per play. They're first in the league in completion percentage. Number one in passing efficiency. They're first on second down, and they have a league low in 15 turnovers. So all those things combined right there, that just screams efficiency to me. They're not gonna make mistakes. It's almost like the opposite of bend don't break. Like they're just gonna go down the field and they can hit their shots too. So it's a good test for Ryan Phillips' unit, and a lot more on defense too that we'll get into.
They've won games convincingly. They've won games where they've come from behind and completely shut down the opposing team in the second half. Think of a game against Saskatchewan they had at home the first time they played back in July. It was the bye week. I was watching that one in the Okanagan, and then Edmonton last week, their last game they played. The Elks were up by double digits at halftime or close to halftime, and then I know there's some missed field goals for the Elks, but they were shut down in the second half. So, moral of the story here is if the Lions get off to a good start and are up by a touchdown or 10 at half, can't get complacent, can't go conservative, and Jordan Maximic and the offensive coaching staff know that. You talked about Rambo in the start of the regular season about a newcomer to watch, him making the Alouettes out of camp. Of course, Austin Mack was not there at the time, and there were reports that he injured himself in practice on Wednesday. So Austin Mack we're talking about, that's a situation worth keeping an eye on. So loaded at every position. They have depth. It's a credit to Danny Machocha and the job that him and Jason Moss have done turning that around in such short time. So their only loss of the season coming back in week 6 at home to the Toronto Argonauts. So they have lost a game at home this season, their only loss. But Friday night, good way to start week 14 ahead of a triple header on Saturday.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of the ball too, you talk about guys, they've star power. Tyrese Beverette, Mustafa Johnson, Marc-Antoine Duquois. The first two are kind of unknowns, and now I think the average CFL fan knows who these guys are. And just looking at Montreal's defense too, one thing that really stood out to me is they've allowed 5 completions of over 30 yards this entire season. So that's a remarkable number. No other team has fewer than 10 against. So that's half right there. So Montreal's defense, they do not give up the big play, which is an interesting contrast, right? Because it's Nathan Rourke-led offense. They seek that big play, right? Justin McInnis, Alex Hollins as a burner. Keon Hatcher is coming alive here. So there's a big contrast there. That's probably where the game's going to be won or lost, in my opinion, at least on the offensive side of the ball versus Montreal defense. If the Lions can make big plays, get into the end zone instead of settling for field goals. And then even another aspect too, we talked about this storyline in February when Will Stanback joined, but he's been telling everybody he's playing with a chip on his shoulder for how things ended with his tenure in Montreal. It's his first game back. We just talked earlier about how he's playing probably the best ball in a long time that he has. And Montreal's run defense, they allow the third most yards in the CFL. So maybe there's a recipe for Will Stanback to get some well-earned revenge against his old squad. That's
a good one to keep an eye on. And was with Will on Wednesday morning for his Global BC interview, Huddle Up with the BC Lions every Wednesday. And of course, they went there. They asked the question about going back to face the team that basically cast you off, made you a cast-off ahead of free agency. That's the thing you forget. It was ahead of free agency when he came here. It was like 2 days before they released him to pursue opportunities. So, and he was mostly, you could tell he had a little bit of a gleam in his eye, but he's like, you know what, it's bittersweet. He still has friends there. Just have to go dominate like we always try to do and have fun doing it. It's the right mindset. If you ask him off the record or behind closed doors, maybe he gives you a different answer, but he's the right mindset, and that's just a testament to the leader that he is. We have a couple of transactions to talk about. We've talked a bit about Mathieu Betts, but you saw firsthand Betts in Victoria against Ottawa. It's not like this guy hadn't been playing football, so he looks a bit leaner too, eh? And that has to help with his speed off the edge. So even when he wasn't noticeable on the stat sheet, he was causing havoc. The Lions have their pass rush back, so to speak, and he got a sack late in this game, and the defense clearly fed off Mr. Betts' energy.
Yeah, a couple of run stops too. I thought that stood out for Betts on some outside of run plays from Ottawa where Betts uses that speed that he's known for to catch up and make the play. But it's pretty wild considering that he flew into Victoria on Thursday evening, didn't practice once, just went out for the walkthrough on Friday and comes in, gets on the board with a sack as an effective player. And that just, it proves that this boost of Mathieu Betts is going to be legit, and it's going to be important come down the crunch time here. You know, Betts obviously broke the record for most sacks by a Canadian last season, so looks like he's primed to keep up that pace at least for the foreseeable future. So, and he's great in the locker room too. You know, he's always playing foursquare and all that downstairs. Oh, yeah. He was a big leader in that aspect. Obviously a veteran too in this league, so we can definitely coach up the young bucks, Jonah Tavai, Julio Falanico, maybe improve their pass rushing skills, and just overall good to have him back. It's just a fun guy to be around.
Things feel normal again, and Jalon Edwards-Cooper arrived at the start of the week. We knew this was coming for a couple of weeks, just a matter of him getting up here and starting the process of getting cleared, working out to the side with the injured guys. So Coop, to me, you chalk that up to some veteran insurance, and we've seen some juggling in the secondary back there. I think Jordan Perryman is going to head from the 1-game to the 6-game injured list. Expect that to come out when the depth chart and roster are released on Thursday. So nothing wrong with a little injury insurance, if not anything else.
Edwards-Cooper is a damn good ball player right? Like the Riders didn't make him one of the most highest paid DBs in the league for no reason. I'm talking free agency when ultimately he failed his physical, and now is our reward to get back. But yeah, Jalon's a great tackler, a high energy guy. I know Jimes in very well with the rest of the DBs, really good buddies with Gary, all those guys. So it allows our piece of flexibility. I'm really interested to see how the secondary shakes out once Jalon is healthy and 100% ready to go. And again, you need that depth. Mike Jones, the year before Tyndall Cooper, I remember had to get some spot starts. All year we've kind of been seeing Patrice Rene, Jordan Perryman, Ronald Kent step in, right? So the secondary is a physical position, right? And it's no matter what you say about DBs and how they go about things, but it gets physical. So you need all hands on deck, and it's good to have Jalon on board.
All right, we're going to talk about our Wall of Fame game briefly. We'll talk about some BC Lions award nominees over the first 2/3 of the year, preview the final third, that and more on First and Now.
Get ready to roar like never before as the BC Lions clash with the Toronto Argonauts September 13th, presented by Bosa Properties. Be there for the Wall of Fame induction of the legendary 2000 Grey Cup team. Tickets from just $25. Visit bclions.com.
First and Now is a presentation of World Vision. Reminder to check out our Beyond Borders documentary series. Head to our YouTube channel, BC Lions. Bo Lacumbo, George Chaka, Enoch Mwamba, among others.
Rizzy Renzel.
You will know him as Dominique Rhymes. Good to see Dom find the end zone there.
I'm not going to lie. Touchdown dance was 10 out of 10.
Even though
it was against us, 10 out of 10 touchdown dance. So shout out Dom Rhymes.
Everyone was in Kenya just showcasing the great job World Vision does to support these countries. You and I did a podcast, a roundtable podcast, which is available as well if you subscribe here to First and Now in our YouTube channel. It was great to hear some stories from George, Bo, Enoch, Kyla with World Vision. So Proud to have World Vision on board as the presenting sponsor of First Now. Can't talk anymore, Nikki. It's been too busy.
Yeah, we've been go, but it's not the action's not stopping. Obviously Montreal, and then after that, stretch of home games. Getting excited to come back to BC Place.
3 straight home games coming up with a bye in between. So count me in for that.
I've been counting down the days to just kind of putting up my feet for a second at least.
Count me in for that, yes. Subscribe to the Lions Radio Network podcast channel, and you'll get On Tap Tuesday nights. Cast of thousands this week. Ronald Kent Jr., Wally Buono, Sean White. We even had Jim Mills, Canadian Football Hall of Famer, one of the all-time great BC Lions offensive linemen, stop by at Speed's Pub in Ladner, right on the Fraser River. Kind of a cool spot. And it was
I
great.
felt like I was like in Outer Banks or something with that water dock behind the restaurant.
Like Ozark or something.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, the sunset, like Moj kept bringing up. It was Ronnie Patterson too is on the show, right?
Yeah, he kissed me about 5 times. I come home, my wife says, "Why do you got lipstick on your face?" It's like, you don't want to know.
Ronnie.
It's nothing to be concerned about, but you don't want to know. So there you go.
Was funny.
Oh, good times. 12 games in, 6-6. At the start of the year, if we were told that, we probably would not have liked it, but 5-game losing streak, reminder that anything can happen. We went into Toronto week 1 and lost a close one. Had some great defensive plays, thinking of Thibaut Debaye, the first global touchdown coming on a fumble return. 50-cent night at Save-On-Foods Field, home opener night, a gritty win over Calgary. What stood out to me, Nick, some of these early season wins, whether it's the 24-21 walk-off over Edmonton, the narrow win in Winnipeg in week 3 to get us a 2-1, it wasn't necessarily all flash and dash. It was timely defense, good special teams, Sean White clutching up. That's what you take from the 4-5-1 start. It wasn't all track meet like a lot of people have come to expect with this team. And that, I think, is something that bodes well for the stretch drive, because they're going to have to win some ugly games.
Hell, it was a two-headed monster in that receiving core, though, right? Alex Hollins and Justin McInnes. We were talking CFL record pace. We were talking Doug Flutie numbers for VA. So they were putting up the numbers. Yeah, it just wasn't the points that were clicking, and that was kind of the red zone woes at the start. But it was still resulting in wins. Like Rick Campbell always says, those 4 or 5 plays that decide football games. Or not even Rick Campbell. Any good football coach preaches that message, right? And the Lions are coming up on top, right? Alex Hollins was always clutching those games. Josh Archibald, I remember his start. I remember he had a big sack in that week 6 win against Shea Patterson.
That's right.
And a forced fumble in the fourth quarter there. So those are the type of plays you need that deliver winning football. And it looks like this Lions team is getting back to that phase, which is good.
Yep.
And the home field advantage, this team is still 4-1 at home. The road woes have been real.
The only loss coming to Winnipeg there, yeah.
Yeah, it's been real road woes, right? So it's going to be even that more important to secure home field throughout the playoffs, right? First place is right there for the taking, despite a 5-game losing streak, too, that came up midway through the year.
And there's been some sad injuries, of course. Josh Woods, a lot of people might forget that, talking about week 2 going down with his season-ending knee injury. That was a player we were looking forward to see come into his own, and he was. But the flip side of that, a guy like Ace Ely steps in and plays a starting role in the middle. Ben Hladek, potentially another one going to be going to the 6 when the roster comes out before Montreal. Whether he sits out 6 games, we shall see. Again, we have a bye coming up in a couple of weeks, so maybe after that, you reassess some of those guys, and maybe you take some of those guys off early. But the most frustrating loss for me had to be Calgary.
Because it was there, right?
Yeah, and Seontae Evans, if he's able to corral a fumble, different story. A couple of Vernon Adams Jr. interceptions, not necessarily his fault. And you look at how Calgary has struggled. I mean, the week after that, the Stampeders go into Ottawa and just get boat raced, like 33-6 or something. And it's like, okay. And that started the 5-game losing streak, of course. The shutout loss in Winnipeg, which obviously very frustrating. Edmonton going in there. Vernon Adams, of course, was out, and Jake Dolagala was in. And the Elks picked up a much-needed win. They were playing desperate football that night. And then, of course, the Nathan Rourke return, the whirlwind week. Maybe it was ripe for a disappointment all along. We don't know. So the Lions, as a result, now behind the 8 ball in this race for first. have to finish with a better record outright against the Bombers. The teams are 6-6. Winnipeg gets Saskatchewan at home in the Banjo Bowl this week. So again, we started off by talking about Touchdown Pacific and getting it done against Ottawa. We know this team is capable of playing up to that high standard, and they're going to have to more often than not with 6 games to go.
Yeah, and I'm pretty much just going to echo what you said about that high standard. That's what it's going to take, right? And if this team is playing like they did in week 13, if they're playing like they did in week 3 when they beat Winnipeg, if they're playing like they did, when they beat the Riders in the Watermelon Smash, I don't think anybody can touch this team, right? So you got a superstar quarterbacks, one of the best running backs in the league, probably the best wide receiving core in the league. I mean, this defense is coming along too, right? You heard Gary Peters say last week, this was the unit, this was the group that he most liked to see, right? TJ Lee at Sam, who, by the way, on Saturday, game high 9 tackles all over the place, right? And a lot of heavy collisions, right? And like you said with Ryder and Ace, like something special might be brewing there. It does suck to see Ben and Josh miss time and with injuries, but something special, I think, is brewing with Ryder and Ace. He saw it on the second play from scrimmage where Ace gets his hands on the football. Ryder Varga again with an open field tackle for a turnover in the fourth quarter, right, last Saturday. So, you need depth, and it's coming through at a good point right now. And this final stretch here, like we said, it's home game heavy, which is great because this team's 4-1 at the home, but a lot of key football coming up here.
Very much look forward to it. And before we wrap up with some award candidates and go for it or punt, let's look ahead quickly. Just some point form notes on each game. We've broken down Montreal, big one, Friday night. Last short week for this Lions team, Saturday to Friday. As a week from Friday, the Toronto Argonauts come into town. A week 1 rematch, our 70th season game. The 2000 Grey Cup champions are going onto the Wall of Fame. Very much looking forward to that night. We're going to have most likely Damon Allen join us next week to reminisce about 2000 and talk about Wall of Fame night. But a big storyline with the Argos, of course, the return of Chad Kelly hasn't necessarily been an all smooth ride. One win they got. It's escaping me who it came against.
They won that game, or did they miss a field goal and get a point because they missed the field goal? You know what I'm talking about? Saskatchewan?
Yeah, the Rouge game. Yeah. Yeah.
Weird way to win a game.
Weird way to win a game, but it was 18, was it 18-17 or something
like that? Oh, the red zone woes.
Yeah. See, another game where Saskatchewan started strong. Yeah, the Argos got stuffed 3 times on 3rd and 1 from the 1, right? So
9 times in that whole sequence, which is crazy, yeah. But,
and again, my brain's so fried, I can't remember who they played, but yes, it was Saskatchewan. Anyway, Lions and Argos, Toronto didn't come here last year.
We owe them one.
People forget
We've been saying that for a minute.
We owe them one. So that's good storyline for me. Good little test, yeah.
That's a storyline for me, is just getting the Argos are trying, like you said, trying to find themselves here with Chad Kelly back in at quarterback, and it's been 2 tough losses there at BMO the last couple seasons, and they haven't been able to come to the Dome yet. So what better way to start this home field advantage, get back to BC place than welcome in the Argos.
Bye week to follow, just the second bye week of the season, before a September 27th home game against the Hamilton Tiger Cats, our 4th annual Orange Shirt Day game. Be a newly designed orange shirt, which I've seen the mock-ups for. Going to be very impressive. Always a special game on our calendar, and this one, Nick, is going to be all about not making it a trap game. I'm sure the storylines and the questioning to Rick and the players media-wise will be about not overlooking a team with a much inferior record. You throw the records out. And if the Tiger Cats are still well behind the 8 ball here, you're also into a territory where guys want to prove themselves. They want to stick around and be here next year. Bo Levi Mitchell's having a heck of a bounce back year as well. So that's always an X factor. You're going to throw the records out in this game.
Yeah, and one of 2 outcomes here are likely or probable is that this is either Nathan O'Rourke's 6th start, and he's in full swing coming off a bye week, even more time to get comfortable, and probably at that point 100% feeling good about where he is in this offense. Or if for whatever reason Nathan's not available, Vernon Adams Jr. should be available at this point, right, and fully healthy too. So this is the time of the year where they're going to have to deliver clutch football, key moments, and all that. And like you said, not fall into the trap of the Tiger Cats, who I mean, they got a big win last week. They're kind of creeping up, and with this tight West Division like that, a crossover to the East is not out of the equation for Hamilton, which is crazy. So
that's true.
While they're 3-9 right now,
3-9.
Maybe they're 6-9 at that point, gearing up to make a playoff run.
Maybe
here.
they're beating out Saskatchewan.
Who knows, right?
Hamilton at Winnipeg, Western semifinal. Is that what you're saying? Anyway.
That'd be a dandy.
Yeah, it would be. All right, Friday, October 4th, third straight home game, of course. It's our second annual Gravy Bowl, a week before Thanksgiving, but we're still going to do it because it's such a fun game theme. So I'm sure Dwayne will be out carving turkey and serving food like he was last year. Dwayne Vano, our president. Got to get the season series with Calgary. Have lost it to Winnipeg, have technically lost it to Edmonton on point differential. So if you want to firmly stay in control of your playoff destiny, you must get a win against the Stamps and take 2 out of 3.
Yeah, and this starts a stretch of 2 massive games against the West Division too, right? Where tiebreaker stakes are up for the grabs. I know Sask the following week, they have a tie in their record, so that kind of throws everything for a loop. But got to get the tiebreaker versus Calgary, and it just closes off that stretch at home, right? And if we can get 3-0 at home there, it'll be shaping up nice for the final month of the season. Yeah,
October 12th, that is Thanksgiving weekend, Saturday night in Regina. Always great to go in to Saskatchewan, and it's extra special when you go in the fall closer to the playoffs. It might be a little nipply, it might be a little windy, and it'll be loud. It always is at Mosaic Stadium. And who knows, if the Lions can stay ahead of Saskatchewan, and I mean by at least 1 point, because you mentioned their tie, this could be a situation where a win in Regina could all but clinch a home playoff game. They get a 3-point lead with 2 weeks to go. The Lions will have a bye in their last week. I haven't looked yet to see if Saskatchewan has the same, but they could all but determine the fact that they're at least going to have the start of the playoffs at home. This race for first place could very well come down to the end. I know for a fact Winnipeg plays Montreal in the final week when we're sitting at home watching. So who knows if that game means nothing to the Alouettes? That could spell trouble. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Going to be a big one in Regina. Nathan Rourke back to the scene where he got injured, of course, in 2022.
Yeah, and like you said, hostile environment should be electric there. I think it's their lights out game too, so I've had that one circled for a while just to experience that whole aspect of Mosaic. And yeah, it sets up another big one afterwards against Montreal, right? Like you said, it's the last home game of the season, last game of the season for us. That's October 19th. But what's going to be settled at that point, right? The game prior, Saskatchewan's probably going to have major implications, like you said, or maybe it won't. And this Montreal game could be a situation where, I mean, maybe Montreal hasn't clinched the East yet. Maybe we're looking to clinch the West, right? So I'm looking forward to that Week 20 game there too. Yeah,
I mean, like I was saying, Winnipeg wraps up in Week 21 at Montreal. We wrap up in Week 20 at home to Montreal. That's our Future Stars night, our salute to amateur football. Always a special one. I'm sure you'll see some football kids playing on the field pregame and at halftime, and we'll formally induct the BC Football Hall of Fame class that night. Always a special one. Few familiar names that we know media-wise to be excited for. We will leave it at that for now. I was on a call about that earlier today. Western semifinal, Saturday, November 2nd. Love the Saturday playoffs. Hopefully we're not there. Hopefully we're watching Winnipeg play Saskatchewan, Calgary, or like I said, maybe Hamilton. You never know.
Edmonton, who knows?
Edmonton, myriad of possibilities. Western final, Saturday, November 9th. Both those playoff games, 3:30 Pacific time starts, and it all leads to the 111th Grey Cup, Sunday, November 17th. Stay tuned in the coming days, next week or two, some festival announcements coming. Do not know a thing, no inside info, but knowing the group running this thing, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm on the edge of my seat for that. Been waiting.
Of course, a big part of Grey Cup week in Vancouver at the Convention Center, the CFL Player Awards, and we'll just quickly go through the major ones here and talk about some of our candidates. Most outstanding player before his injury, Vernon Adams Jr. for sure, the leader in the clubhouse in the West. But we have some other possibilities. Is Nathan Rourke a dark horse? Justin McInnes could be the first Montreal-born player to lead the league in receiving. I found out that this week. William Stanback, we've talked about him. So some fun possibilities there.
Yeah, I think got to get the train going for McInnes here, right? Obviously, he's played every single game this season, so he checks off that box. Has led the league in receiving all season. Just been a monster all year, right? You watch the tape, and it shows how dominant he is right now and kind of the peak of his career. So a lot of good candidates right there for MOP. Hopefully, we'll have somebody representing us.
I know you'd have to think McInnes is the leading candidate for most outstanding Canadian.
Better be.
We'll get to defense in a minute, but I know I skipped it on your list here. Yeah, has to be. We have Ben Haladic here again. He's likely heading to the 6, so maybe an injury kind of derails that. But he was a guy making strides. Christian Covington gotten better and better, I think, the last few games. And if we're going dark horse for Rourke, we have to go dark horse for Betts. If he gets perhaps half or double digits his sack total, have to consider it.
At least, yeah, like you said, it's based off watching him for 1 week. Betts got to be in that conversation. And then Covington, too. He's someone I think who's every week now he's getting better. And I'm guarantee he attributes that to just getting more comfortable with the Canadian game as the season progresses.
And we should clarify, we're talking about the possible team nominees, not necessarily a guy could win it all. So we should throw that caveat in there. Most outstanding defensive player, yeah, Gary Peters, another solid season. The guy just doesn't miss time. The guy grades out every week, locking down the best receivers on the other teams. Have a hard time betting against Gary, but there's a few other guys worth mentioning.
Yeah, Sione Tuihema obviously leads the team in sacks. He's someone, too, that I think if you're watching Lions games, he's very impactful. I mean, if we're throwing up these dark horse names, is Ryder Varga someone who can kind of sneakily make his way up into this? You look at the stats,
maybe.
You look at the stat sheets, though they're making numbers. Tackles, sacks, TFLs, forced fumbles, and all that. So they're kind of filling up those categories. But yeah, I think it's got to go to GP at this point, right? Probably. I mean, there's Roland Milligan and Tyrell Ford in Winnipeg or Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, respectively, are just having insane seasons.
Yeah,
especially Milligan too. He's leading the league in special teams tackles, which is just absurd. But Gary Peters now, I know he's up double-digit knockdowns. One of those guys who you probably don't notice him that much in coverage because teams don't throw at him that much. But when you saw it last week in the fourth quarter, Ottawa runs a toss to the boundary side, and Gary Peters dips under the receiver's shoulder and blows it up for a TFL. So he is such a good run stopper too. He's a complete player, and just always thankful to have GP on our side. And this is our annual podcast show for GP being a top corner in the CFL.
Here, here. Most outstanding rookie, I just mentioned him, Ace Ely, Ronald Kent, who we've spoken to this week on Tap. Jonah Tavai, I like that possibility. And that's a guy Jonah in camp figures. This is a guy who can get on the roster. He can make things happen, and no bad options there. Yeah,
and unfortunately, I was really pushing the bus for Christophe Beaulieu at the start of the season, but he went down with his ankle injury a couple weeks ago in Edmonton.
Expected to play this week, though.
But we'll see what happens there, because Beaulieu he was starting at that point, had a lot of tackles on teams. We saw him in training camp be a ball hawk too. So I guess Beaulieu would be the dark horse right now, right? With Ace, Ronald, and Jonah getting reps right now.
And most outstanding offensive lineman, this is always tough for those of us not watching film and not seeing what's truly going on. But I can't go wrong with a Jarrell Broxton. Hopefully his injury is not serious, not expected to play in Montreal. Suk Chung, Tyler Packer, some good possibilities there.
Yeah, and Couture's healthy now. Michael at center there. Kent Perkins has been a staple at right tackle.
Yeah, Michael, if he didn't get hurt, might have be making a stronger case now. Good point.
So there's only so many guys that can get chosen for this award, obviously. And the fact that it only is 6 guys that really have any qualifications right now to get nominated for this award is a good thing, because you look across the league, some offensive lines are getting decimated, and that can derail an entire season. So it speaks to this group staying healthy. And, the proof's in the pudding with the run game right now with Will Stanback. They're getting holes for him.
Most outstanding special teams player, I have to go with Sean White, but you see Terry Williams making strides in the return game. He's had a couple POF weekly nominations to back that up. Patrice Rene, just a warrior, a demon, if you will, in the kick coverage game. So I like Whitey, but really you can make a case for a couple.
Yeah, Sean White's got to be the chalk, right? Unfortunately, did miss his first field goal this season last year, but that doesn't mean nothing when you've hit, 30 straight prior to this, or 26 or whatever it was prior to the start of the season. Like you said, Renee's leading the team in special teams tackles. Isaiah Messam's right up there too. kind of the underappreciated role that he's played these last couple of seasons. Max Royer as a global, I think, is up to 10 special teams tackles too. So he's been great in the teams. But yeah, Rene just stands out. You always see, when Patrice Rene made a tackle on teams because you can just feel it and you can see the energy afterwards. So I think he deserves a little credit here.
There you go. 6 weeks will determine a lot in the All-Stars or the All-CFL. I think they're calling those that right now. I like the All-Stars tag better, but
I forgot about that actually. Just sprung that on me.
It's all Pro Football Focus run now. But yeah, awards night, is it the Tuesday, the Wednesday? Usually a Grey Cup week will be here in downtown Vancouver. Okay, go for it or punt. That's what we're doing next here to wrap it up. Okay, good with me. You got a good one here. Go for it.
I'm going for the Commodores Cup. And for those who are following the BC Lions socials last week, we had a couple posts about that. But on Thursday, I ventured out with Commissioner Randy Ambrosi, actually, and his team to the Commodores Cup because Randy was, guest officiating it. And what the Cup is a flag football game between the Navy and the Armed Forces in CFB Esquimalt. So it was intense, to put it lightly. These guys were taking it seriously. It wasn't no walk in the park for these guys. So it was fun to be a part of. It's fun to see the guys compete. Obviously, it's our military too. So pay respect to them and honor them for their service. But it was a really cool afternoon being out there. Nice sunny day in Victoria. The native band of CFB Esquimalt did a performance. They were also the band that performed the national anthem pregame. I Touchdown Pacific, so really cool seeing them. They did a couple cool covers. They did Elton John's "Don't Stop Me Now," so I was enjoying that.
Okay,
one of my all-time favorite songs, actually.
It is,
so,
yes, I knew that.
That made for a good Thursday afternoon while I ventured off from the team for a bit. So going for that.
Yeah, and I know I was sticking with the food theme, and I know we've kind of chuckled about it, but Moj made a good call. He ordered oysters at On Tap, the Barden Banker.
Yeah, that was funny.
I like oysters when it's a special occasion, and that was a special
Called
occasion.
For it, yeah.
Yeah, was love it. I want to get some more, perhaps in Montreal. So can't go wrong with oysters, especially in Victoria when you're on the West Coast.
Awesome. That's your go for it? Or?
That's my go for it. Yeah, that's
Love
it.
That.
Simple.
Oysters. Yeah, it was good. I had one there.
I think I had 3. Because you know him. He's, oh, hey, Baker, have one more. Come on. Then we had to pose for a picture. Have one more. So
he's always like that with chicken wings, too. He always has 2 wings left over, and he puts them in your face and says, have one. Well, so the generous Moj handing out his food. But moving on to punt. Do you want to double down here? I think we're both going NFL here.
Yeah, it's just one of those low-hanging fruit topics, and I'm not just saying it because it's my team involved here, San Francisco, but do you really believe in the Super Bowl hangover?
No.
Like, is it impossible because a team lost the Super Bowl, it means they're automatically going to be bad or not make the playoffs the next year? I don't know.
Well, did you hear what Wally Bono said on Tap yesterday? He said if you lose a football game, it's because you weren't good enough. It's not because you had to travel.
Yeah.
It's not because you lost in the divisional round last year in the playoffs. Just because you weren't good enough.
Yeah, some guy, and I was talking about this on X, and some guy got at me, oh yeah, well, look what happened to Philly last year. Well, yeah, Philly's downward spiral ironically started in December against the 49ers when the Niners just ran all over them. That result didn't happen because Philly lost the Super Bowl the year before.
No.
Right?
Because they lost Big Dom.
They lost, yeah, that was the Big Dom game. Yeah, the Dre Greenlaw and Big Dom. Yeah, so anyway, glad the NFL is back, but...
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yes.
My punt is that I saw a little rumor that the NFL might be considering starting a week earlier, which means they would start on Labor Day weekend, and I am punting that away because I want the CFL to have its own gold stage platform for Labor Day weekend because those 4 football games across the board were incredible. Yeah. Every single game. Obviously, maybe if the football and Touchdown Pacific wasn't the best if you're an Ottawa fan or just a fan of a close game, but that's not our fault. We're cheering for blowouts every game on our side of things.
Course.
But the other 3 games on Sunday and Monday, fantastic. And it was so cool to get the CFL all its recognition and really put it on that grand stage it deserves. And Labor Day should be CFL's weekend. So NFL, you can have whatever, December, January, February, Super Bowl, but keep your football away from Labor Day.
I had not heard that, and I agree with you, but I guess I understand it to an extent because they're going to 18 games eventually.
That's the kicker.
When that happens, the Super Bowl this year even is not till February 17th. That's still too late. That's too late already, in my opinion. So, unfortunately, I guess if you gas a week of preseason and start that a week later, maybe, but I don't know if they would do that. So,
I just want the CFL to have its own.
No, I know. I'm with you. But
so I'm punting that. Get it away.
I'm punting
from
that,
Canada.
So.
But excited though. Thursday, we got this game in Brazil on Friday, I think, right?
Philly and Green Bay.
That's Brazil, right? And
Kansas City, Baltimore Thursday at Arrowhead.
Full slate Sunday, right?
So, Niners, Jets Monday night.
And Monday, yeah.
How about this? Aaron Rodgers, remember last year, Aaron Rodgers, Monday night, week 1, gets injured, 3-4 plays in?
Yep.
The guy who hit him, Leonard Floyd, is now on the Niners. And they're facing each other on Monday night.
Just keep your head up. No, I'm kidding.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying it's But
I'm happy to see Aaron Rodgers back too. I know he's
me too.
As a football player, I know he's a controversial dude, but I like him.
Yeah,
as a football player. We'll keep it at that, and excited to watch football all weekend.
Love him or hate him, you're watching his games. People are out there. All right, Lions, Alouettes, 4:30 Friday, 3:30 pregame on 980 CKNW and the Lions Audio Network. 4 o'clock pregame on Shere Punjab with Harp Pander and Tak Deer Tyndall, AM 600. That is Lions Radio Punjabi. We'll be back next week again. The plan is to have Damon Allen. BC Lions on Tap will be out at the Shark Club, just steps away from BC Place downtown. We'll come up with a good guest that night. And yes, from Victoria to Montreal, and we're hoping to come back with a 7-6 record. Nikki, thank you, and we'll see you on the plane.